Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to attend our latest two-part series of webinars featuring accountancy and business advisory firm BDO. My name's Ryan Harris. Many of you on the call today will know me as the account manager and sales consultant at NoBlue. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Ellis, who's an indirect tax partner at BDO, and Amit Dev, who is a tax technology lead specializing in indirect tax at BDO. So if anyone has any questions during the webinar, please use the chat option provided. We'll answer your questions in the Q&A later on in the session. So I'll now hand you over to Mark, and Amit will take you through their presentation.
Thanks for that. I'll turn the camera off now so we can focus on the slides. Right, thanks very much. The implications of Brexit, 4.5 years in the making, crikey, we're finally here with a few months to go, and the developments just keep coming thick and fast in terms of things we're going to have to get ready for in terms of VAT and customs duty as well. So the timeline, yes, I say, started 4.5 years ago. We'll cover what's gone on to date, look at what's currently going on, what the position will be after what's being called IP implementation day, I think, now instead of Brexit day, the end of December this year, a couple of months away. And then we'll look a bit further ahead into the future, just have a think about what may be coming down the track for us in the UK. Would you move us on? Thanks. Gosh, I can't believe it was that long ago, but we voted to leave that long ago, and it's as you can see, it's not quite the end of this year. It's 1 hour before the year ends that we will have left the EU properly. I mean, we have. We left on 31 January in terms of being a member, but we've effectively carried on since that point in the transition period, with most things staying pretty much the same as you've experienced, but it does expire again on the 31st of December. And what that means is, and we'll talk about this more as we go into detail on this, we're looking at the UK leaving the EU VAT area. Now, there's no deal that's going to keep us in. What's being looked at is a free trade agreement that won't affect the EU VAT area and the fact we're leaving it. So this has consequences for all your transactions that you do cross-border and the tax codes you use for it, and that's what we're going to go into detail on. And we'll also touch upon Northern Ireland, which has just yesterday had even more special rules announced for it from a VAT perspective, and we'll cover those today. So it literally is hot off the press. Could you move us on? So I'll hand over to you now, Amit, and you can just take us through some of the detail, if that's okay.
Thanks, Mark, and hello, everyone. So I'm going to take you through the so-called Brexit VAT journey, starting off with the current position, and then how we're going to look post 1st of January 2021 and a couple of months after as well, and it will become clearer why we're going to cover up to July 2021 as we progress through the presentation. So as it stands today, the current position is we're still in the EU VAT area, and so what that means is any goods leaving the UK to the EU, to another EU member state, we term those as dispatches, and goods arriving into the UK from another EU member state, so today, are termed as acquisitions. And for your dispatches in your NetSuite system, you're probably charging those at 0% VAT and using tax code EXGB. For acquisitions, you're probably charging yourself acquisition VAT, and then where you're able to recover it, recovering that within the same period. And you're probably using NetSuite tax codes ESGB and the notional tax code SGB. And because we're still within the EU, we still need to do Intrastat declarations where we are above the threshold for arrivals and dispatches. So that's goods moving between different EU member states, coming into the UK or leaving the UK. So in terms of goods arriving from outside the EU, we term those as imports, and any import VAT that's due is payable at the border or can be drawn down from a deferment account where that's applicable and one it has been set up. And for the import VAT purposes, you're probably using tax code IVGB. In terms of import VAT recovery, there tends to be a bit of a timing difference. So you may incur import VAT in one VAT quarter, but you won't receive the C79 until the following VAT quarter, which means there's a bit of a timing difference between when you pay your import VAT and when you're able to recover it, because you can only recover import VAT once you have a C79 certificate. So that's the current position. In terms of going forward, from 1st of January 2021, as Mark stated, the UK will leave the EU VAT area, and there's going to be some change in terminology. So goods leaving the UK from 1st of January 2021, irrespective of where their destination is, be it within the EU or outside the EU, will be termed as exports. And in terms of goods arriving into the UK, again, irrespective of their origin, will be termed as imports. You're probably used to utilising some EU VAT simplifications, such as triangulation. Those will no longer be available for UK businesses. They're obviously not VAT registered elsewhere in the EU. In terms of Intrastat declarations, you're probably hoping that it all goes away because we'll be outside the EU, but unfortunately, you're only half right. So Intrastat declarations will still need to be completed for arrivals, but not dispatches. So let's go into a bit more detail on the import side. So this is for business to business transactions. So the government has announced the introduction of postponed VAT accounting post 1st of January 2021, and it is an optional scheme, so you don't have to use it if you don't want to. And essentially, it's very similar to how acquisition VAT is accounted for at the moment, i.e. you're able to account for import VAT on the same return as you would be able to recover it if import VAT is recoverable for you, depending on your VAT status. And what you can start utilizing going forwards is in NetSuite is your tax code IGB, which is effectively an import reverse charge type of tax code. And you'll be able to use the SGB notional tax code that we've mentioned earlier. So as I've said, import VAT is recoverable on the same VAT return that you account for it. So essentially, there should be a positive cash flow impact. So if you remember from the previous slide, I stated that there's a bit of a mismatch between when you pay import VAT at the moment and probably when you're able to recover it. Going forwards, if you do use the postponed VAT accounting scheme, it should all align up, and really it should just be an accounting entry, if anything. In terms of entries though, on your VAT return, so at the moment acquisition VAT goes into box 2, and where you are able to recover that amount, it goes into box 4, and then for the value of the import, the acquisition, you put that value into box 7 and box 9. Now, according to recent government guidance, that's going to change. There's actually no mention of box 2, so import VAT should go into box 1. You're still obviously able to recover it in box 4 if you are able to recover that import VAT, and then you make an entry in box 7. So Mark will talk about this later in terms of his thoughts on this, but as it stands, there's no mention of box 2, 8 and 9 and what's going to happen to those. So in terms of your box 7 value, that's going to slightly change as well. So what you're going to put into box 7 is obviously going to include the goods value, but also any UK customs duty that's due on those goods being imported into UK, and any potential other costs as well. So that was imports post 1st of January 2021. So let's now focus on exports. Again, business to business transactions post 1st of January 2021. So you're still going to be charging 0% VAT, but you'll be using tax code OGB. And that 0% is obviously contingent upon the documentation that you hold and making sure you meet HMRC's documentation threshold for 0 rating. And then there's essentially 2 types of exports. There's one where the customer collects the goods, and there's one where the supplier acts as importer of record and does a DDB Incoterm delivery essentially to the customer's premises. So in terms of where the customer collects the goods, the responsibility for any import VAT or customs duty on the other side where the goods arrive, that all lies with the customer. So where business is exporting goods on that basis, they don't really need to worry about it. But where DDP Incoterms are used, the supplier does need to think about this, because there may be a registration obligation in the jurisdiction of arrival of the goods, especially where it's within the EU. So that was a bit about in terms of VAT implications of imports and exports, and there are obviously some changes that you need to think about, but probably the most important question is whether you can actually get the goods into the jurisdiction of arrival, whether you can actually clear the goods. And this slide has an excerpt from a BBC News article. So this is a recent article, and it's essentially highlighting the issue, and it's about the freight forwarder, customs clearance agents and shipping industry, essentially, where they're acting as agents and clearing goods on behalf of businesses. And they're essentially pushing back and explaining that there's certain things they're not going to be willing to do post 1st of January 2021. So that amongst our client base anyway, and Mark can elaborate a bit more, we are hearing from our clients that their agents are stating that there's certain things that they won't do, which could impede their ability to clear goods at their arrival destination. For example, one of the EU member states, be it Republic of Ireland, France, Poland, or wherever really. So just to expand on that, what the issue is. So from the 1st of January 2021, UK businesses, if they don't have already an EU establishment, will become non-EU established. So they won't be established in the EU, assuming that there is no appetite to change that, i.e. create some sort of establishment in the EU by branch or be it by a subsidiary, for example. And what that means is that they'll have to appoint a customs clearance agent that is EU established to be able to clear customs, so be able to import the goods effectively, and for the goods not to be held at the border. And there's a very important point now. Bullet 3 is really the key point here to focus on. So the customs clearance agent has to be and has to act as an indirect representative, and that's an important distinction. So currently, for example, if a business is supplying goods on DDP Incoterms to a business in Republic of Ireland, at the moment, the customs clearance agent is probably acting as a direct representative and that's fine because the UK business currently, today that is EU established. And the relevance of being a direct representative means that the customs clearance agent is not on the hook for any customs duties or import VAT applicable. Now, of course, because that movement is within the EU, there won't be any anyway, but that's what the key concept really is of direct representative. It's not the customs clearance agent that's on the hook for any customs duties or import VAT due, it's the business. Now, where that status changes to indirect representative, that changes completely. So the customs clearance agent would now be on the hook for customs duties and import VAT, which means post 1st of January 2021, that same movement from the UK to Republic of Ireland on DDP Incoterms, where that UK business is not EU established and therefore has appointed an agent, if that agent is acting as an indirect representative, if that business then clears off, for example, and doesn't pay the customs duties and import VAT, that customs clearing agents will be jointly and severally liable for those amounts, and the Irish revenue could potentially knock on their door and demand it. So that's really quite a key focal point there in terms of logistics point of view of Brexit, and we're finding a lot of clients are querying this with their customs clearance agents, and they've stated quite clearly that they're not prepared to act as an indirect representative, which could lead to other decisions needing to be made to ensure that the supply chain is protected. So some of our clients, for example, are establishing themselves in the EU by branch or by a subsidiary. So that's imports and exports B2B and the logistics issue really that you probably want to think about, and we would suggest that you speak to your logistics partner to see whether this is going to be an issue or not. So Mark mentioned that literally hot off the press yesterday, we've got an update on the Northern Ireland protocol. So I'm just literally going to read off this slide because it is that new. So from 1st of January 2021, Northern Ireland businesses buying and selling goods to the EU will still be considered an intra-EU movement of goods because Northern Ireland will remain within the EU VAT area. Northern Ireland businesses will get an additional VAT number for EU trade. What this is and how that system is going to work is not yet confirmed. Where goods are being sold from Great Britain, which is England, Scotland and Wales, to Northern Ireland customers, it'll be a similar arrangement to now, but with a tweak. So where that movement of goods happens from GB, Great Britain to Northern Ireland, that business will need to charge UK VAT, but then recover it on the same VAT return. And then supplies of Northern Ireland goods between UK VAT group members is disregarded as it would do in a normal UK VAT group, but those members need to be established in Northern Ireland as well. So that's a little quirk there. And then because Northern Ireland will remain within the EU VAT area, triangulation will still be available. So certain simplification will still be available to those businesses. So that's a Northern Ireland protocol, and literally hot off the press, came in yesterday. So this may equally change in a couple of weeks. Okay, so that was all kind of Brexit implications from a VAT perspective on B2B transactions. Now we're going to focus on B2C, business to consumer transactions. And there's a couple of dates that you probably want to pin on the ball where this is applicable to you. So we've got almost like a transition period between 1st of January 2021, 1st of July 2021, but there is a change in the rules. And the reason why we have this period of so-called transition is because the EU Commission wanted to bring in a harmonization of B2C rules. They wanted that to be implemented on the 1st of January 2021, but because of the pandemic, that's been delayed. So the implementation of that has been delayed till the 1st of July 2021, and that's why we're having this kind of complexity post 1st of January 2021. So post-Brexit, or post-transition period, should I say, the distance selling thresholds will no longer apply to UK businesses selling to consumers within the EU. Businesses will need to register where the consumer lives within the EU member state, unless the consignment value, so each consignment, is lower than or equal to 22 euros, or the customer pays the import VAT. So where it is above 22 euros and you're thinking, oh yeah, my customer will just pay the import VAT, you probably want to think about customer experience, because if the customers are used to already dealing with you and are used to a seamless, so to speak, service, then this change, may cause an issue. It may not, but it may do. So it's probably one worth definitely thinking about to see what's the best way forward. And also it's temporary, because it will only last probably until 1st of July 2021. And then 1st of July 2021 onwards for B2C supplies, the business, the seller, will need to register for VAT where the consignment value is greater than 150 euros. So that 22 euro threshold will be scrapped and replaced with this threshold of 150 euros. But where the consignment value is below 150 euros, the seller will be able to register for what's called an import one-stop shop regime within that one of the EU member states, and from that import one-stop shop, they'll be able to account for all the import VAT they've incurred in different member states, put it on one return and file that on a monthly basis. So that was the implications of B2C supplies. So in terms of what we've spoken about already, Brexit really does truly impact movements of goods, but there are a couple of quirks, so to speak, potentially on services, and it probably won't be that applicable to you, but is this worth just bearing this in mind, just in case it is applicable. So in terms of B2B services, they're probably going to remain the same, i.e. you still apply the reverse charge procedure where you're purchasing services from a supplier that's based outside the UK, be it within the EU or outside the EU, and you can still utilize your NetSuite tax code, RCGB and SGB, national tax code, but you just need to watch out for use and enjoyment rules. In terms of B2C services, going forward, you may need to register, especially where electronically supplied services are being supplied. And in terms of financial services, we still need confirmation whether the specified services order will be expanded for all non-UK transactions. At the moment, it's non-EU transactions. So we just need confirmation on whether that will be expanded to include just all non-UK essentially. And in terms of the tour operator margin scheme and tour operator in general, that's yet to be confirmed. So that's me for now, and I'll hand you back over to Mark.
Yeah, thanks for that. So there's a man appeared on your screen, and this is a test for those of you on the call to see how old you are, because I'm quite old and I remember this. I think we're all used to Donald Trump and some of the stuff he says, and we raise our eyebrows and go, really? What are you talking about? But this was the originator of the what on earth are you talking about? and you'll see why in a second. Go on, press play, Amit.
Reports that say that something hasn't happened are always interesting to me, because as we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there's some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
Yes, and in an age of Donald Trump, that would have been standard fare, I think. But yes, Donald Rumsfeld definitely originated it. So I hope you've got a sense from this webinar that there are a lot of known knowns. There are a lot of people who've said, and we have a lot of clients that we have to say this to, they go, well, nothing's really agreed yet. There is a lot that is certain. We have a lot of known knowns. There are still quite a few known unknowns, as in what freight forwarders will do. They are in a driving seat at the moment, quite literally, because of the increase in trade, five-fold increase in customs declarations. So they're now becoming very picky about who they want to work with and what way they will choose to work with them. So that yeah, it's unknown how far that will go across the freight forwarder sector. And what that means for freight. If you cannot get your goods into the EU, will goods literally be dropped at the ports, and then somebody will have to come and collect them? That could be a logistical nightmare. The VAT return boxes, we spoke about that earlier. You know, we know there are some changes there. Box 2 becomes redundant, we think. So box 8 and box 9 are redundant, or does that mean we're going to get a shorter VAT return with just 5 boxes, which becomes a lot easier for accounting systems to deal with? Or do we go like some of the other EU member states and take the opportunity to put more boxes in? Most of the other EU member states have a heck of a lot more boxes than we do for all sorts of sales and purchase transactions. We also are still finding out which EU countries will require you to, as a UK company, to appoint a local fiscal representative to effectively stand in your shoes in that country if you want a VAT registration there. Belgium is one that has. Other countries have said they will not require it. So such as Germany, they don't need it and have said they won't want it from UK companies. But lots of other EU countries may need you to appoint a local fiscal representative, and it basically means you're gonna have to pay somebody to be your guarantor for the VAT that you may be paying in that country. And then Northern Ireland VAT numbers. Now maybe it'll be the same as the UK VAT number, just with NI at the front instead of GB, but we're still waiting for details on what this will be. So potentially there's a lot of changes needed to update supplier and customer master data for Northern Ireland suppliers and customers that you may have. So there's quite a few things that we are waiting for or know now, and hopefully they will become clearer over the next 2 months. I hope they do. So a lot of work to do in the next few months. Let's look forward to the future now. These are the unknown unknowns. We don't need to keep the minimum standard VAT rate of 15%. We could go a lot lower than that if we wanted, or we could do it selectively on certain products and services that we sell. We could even have lower VAT rates for certain areas of the country. We are literally free to do whatever we want. Now, that would be very complex from an accounting system perspective, but I've not seen the Chancellor give much thought to that with all these changes that we've had this year. He's just been thinking about the economic impact, not how to account for things. So there may be more complexity, not less. The zero rate of VAT, that's been a bugbear for many years. We'd like to have more zero rates, we've heard many times, and the one we had this year was on electronic publications, and we've seen it on PPE this year, and they want to do more in this area in a targeted way. Yes, we did think about, it was talked about abolishing VAT altogether, but given that more and more countries around the world are getting VAT systems, it would be really weird if we got rid of it. But if we tie it with the US, who can say? Maybe, maybe not. We have seen temporary measures put in place in the hospitality sector. You could easily see that in other sectors to encourage investments. We talked a while ago about air passenger duty rates being lower at certain airports in the United Kingdom. So again, you could see things like that with VAT as well. So that's what this slide is about. Basically, there's lots of flexibility there, and the government could do all sorts of things in the future. Now it's free from the EU VAT directive. Could you knock us on to the next slide? Thank you very much. Questions. So turn the camera back on and see if anybody's got any questions for us.
So we did envisage there was the potential for a large number of questions that may have come from today's webinar. So please do get in touch, and Mark can advise on how best to approach any of your individual circumstances. Oh, we just have a question in. So, hi, we are looking at purchasing digital supplies such as software from outside of the EU, B2B. How will that be accounted for? Is there an import charge despite not crossing any borders?
Yeah, so we're quite fortunate with services that you don't have to worry about customs duty, and that services are largely unaffected by this. So if you buy services in from overseas, I can't remember the code, Amit, you had it before, but you have the reverse charge code on services that you put on your VAT return form, and that shouldn't change at all.
No, let me just double check here. So I'm just going to slide. You're putting me to the test now. I'm trying to quickly find it. It's all right. Yeah, sorry. RCGB, that's it.
There you go, RCGB.
Fantastic. Another question just come in. Who qualifies as a customs clearance agent? Can a courier operate as an indirect representative?
Yeah, so there is actually a list on HMRC's website of all the approved, within the UK, people who can actually log on to HMRC's system and lodge import declarations. Now, most of the big freight forwarders do. So DB Schenker, FedEx, DHL, all the really big guys, they do this in-house. They have teams in-house who log on to HMRC system, the German tax authority system, etc., and actually do the customs declarations. Other freight forwarders who are maybe smaller will outsource that aspect to a specific customs agent. This is all they do, just do declarations all day long. So a bunch of agents working behind the scenes doing stuff for you, but they're only as good as the instructions they give you. But it comes back to this point again: what level of risk are they prepared to take? So if they are your direct agent because you are established in the country of import and they're doing an import declaration for you, they have zero liability for any import VAT and duty that may be due on that shipment, which is good in one sense, but it's bad in another. They've got zero liability, so they don't exactly always take care in terms of the entries they put in it. So if there are errors in commodity codes and maybe some more customs duty was due than they paid on your behalf, then you're the one that gets the bill and the penalty for it. You can't just say the shipper, it was their fault. No, they were just your agent. Whereas if they are the indirect representative, which we heard earlier, fewer and fewer are willing to act as, because business is about to be very good to them, then they, for a £50 charge for doing a customs declaration, are potentially on the hook for thousands of pounds worth of import VAT and duty for whatever reason. It's wrong, the entry that's made, and some of the details are wrong on it, the value, the commodity code. So like I say, the lists are out there. They're on .gov.uk for who are the authorised agents, but most shippers do stay on their website if they do this service.
Brilliant. If there's any follow-up to any of these answers, please just let me know in the questions as well. We have another question in. If we trade in more than one EU country, do we have to register in each of those countries for VAT, or can we register in one for the whole of the EU?
Yeah, very common question this. So customs duty, EU customs duty is an EU tax. So at the moment, right now when goods come in, say from the US into the UK, EU customs duty is collected by HMRC, but it's not ours to keep. We have to give it to Brussels. It's an EU tax. We get to keep a bit for ourselves to cover our administration of the tax, actually collecting it, administering it, but that's it, it's not our tax. Whereas VAT is a country tax. So really it comes down to the country of import. So get this question a lot. So a UK business that sells to various EU customers, but all the goods go via the tunnel and through France. That's the entry point. In theory, registering for VAT in France is all they need to do. That's where they will have the import. That's where your import VAT is paid, French import VAT. And then from that point, they can go on into the EU in the normal way. Intra-EU supplies, but from France, to be reported on a French VAT return form and a French EC sales list and a French Intrastat form.
Thank you very much. Next question in. What are the minimum export docs required when sending goods? From experience, we send invoices, so what additional info needs to be added to these invoices, such as commodity codes?
Yeah, so freight forwarders, and it'll vary by them in terms of the information they want from you, but they usually, would like as much as possible. They need to know where the goods are going, who you're selling them to, what trade terms you're on, you've agreed with your customer, and ideally give them the right commodity code. The last thing you want is for them to have a guess. As I say, when they're a direct representative, it doesn't really, it's not really the end of the world if they get the wrong commodity code, and perhaps they put a zero customs duty commodity code down when actually it should have been several percent. They don't really need to worry about it because they're absolvable liability through the contract they have with you. So you really do want to give them as much information as possible. But you should have most of the information at the moment. If you're doing Intrastat forms, you've got the commodity codes, hopefully the right ones. So always try to give the freight forwarders as much information as you possibly can.
Brilliant, thanks for that. Next question is in. What would you advise would be the key steps to take internally as a priority in the final stages of the transition period?
I think the key thing for me is speak to freight forwarders. That's the big issue, that if you thinking about a VAT registration or how much customs duty you might pay and what to do with the price you're being charged or charging in terms of any customs duty cost that's being built in, those are minor in comparison to you can't even get the goods out of the UK and into the EU or vice versa. I mean, these are the talks we've heard about 13-mile tailbacks leading up to the tunnel and 10,000 lorries. This will be because of what I've just talked about now. People will not have realised that freight forwarders will not want to take the risk for being, an importer for you as a UK company into France, say. And that's the reason your goods don't move. So that for me is the key thing to do, is speak to freight forwarders. And if needs be, most businesses I speak to say, we've never really given it much thought. We deal with several haulage companies. Now's the time to get really focused and think about getting with maybe a single freight forwarding organisation that's got lots of capability. Uses alternative ports. Who knows what's going to happen at Dover? Maybe you should be going by one of the other ports. Maybe things will be a bit better. But somebody who's got some flexibility and is able to help you maybe act as your indirect representative for a higher fee, for sure. But at least then your goods do move, and you're not. And then you're not stuck without being able to get stock in or send orders to customers. That's the key thing I would be doing now.
No, that's fantastic. A couple more questions have come in. So we use motivational speakers from outside the EU and conduct their services in UK and EU. They're no physical asset, as a server is their knowledge and experience. What will the tax code be from the 1st of January for this?
Should be the same as now, I would have thought, Amit, wouldn't it? That's just a B2B service.
Yeah, but motivational speaker, so is that use and enjoyment where it's performed?
Yeah, well, no, but if it's all electronic, Yeah.
Is it?
I mean,
is it electronically supplied, or is it a speaker actually
I was
delivering
going
in
to
front
say,
of an audience?
yeah. I mean, if it's over the video like this, I'd like to think this is a motivational talk. Probably not. Probably demotivational. Then yeah, this is just advice. The internet enables it, so it's. I wouldn't say that would change the nature of the service. So I would have thought it wouldn't change. It'd be the same as it is now.
So just to clarify, it is both types. So it is virtual and on-site.
Well, if we're talking on sites, then yes, that would be more where it happens. I don't think anybody was able to travel these days, but if you can and get somewhere and deliver things physically, as in being there present, then yes, that does. That's what you look to, and that's always been there for educational training type services. But there is some ambiguity sometimes, and says, well, actually, is it consultancy? In which case, you don't need to think about where it's performed. But the rules I don't see changing. Pre and post 1 January on this stuff, services are largely unaffected. And the biggest change we're seeing is that the UK leaves the EU VAT area, and so we become outside the EU. And this use and enjoyment principle, which does apply to a lot of things like equipment leasing and advertising and other things, then suddenly we're on the outside now for that. So we're not non-EU, and that may affect whether something is subject to EU VAT or UK VAT, but that's where I think the biggest VAT changes should be on services rather than things like that.
So the next question may actually require a safe harbour statement on our part. So in your opinion, what is the likelihood of a deal being done?
From what I've heard in terms of the press reports, it's actually it's quite good. I don't think it'll be as comprehensive as we would like, but it's not that hard to see. It's eminently doable, even if it's not across all sectors. Just to say, I won't put customs duty on your goods that originate in the EU, which isn't everything. Not everything originates there. A lot of things come from Turkey and China, just like they do in the UK. If you won't tax customs duty the goods that originate in Great Britain, and again, let's not forget, a lot of goods don't originate here. They get imported, maybe assembled here, but they certainly aren't made here. So to give that to each other, which is what we've got at the moment, I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think anybody thinks it's we're going to undercut each other. I don't think anybody would think that. So a lot of the stuff I've seen seems to think, it's going to be one of these things that's pulled out nearer the time. Which do we have a track record on this? Yeah, we experienced it last year. I remember it well. It's never going to happen. He's never going to do it. The EU were being absolutely no, and then 3 days later it was smiles and sunshine. Everybody was shaking hands, and he'd got what he wanted. So maybe he'll do that again this time. It's just my personal view, but I do think it'll be a deal done, but it will not affect anything we've just said here. We are leaving the EU VAT area, and we are leaving the EU Customs Union. All that we're talking about here, primarily with a free trade agreement, is do we tax customs duty each other's goods?
Thanks for that. There's one final question, unless anyone has any further comments. Where would you recommend looking to see the latest changes in legislation, as you alluded to the changes in Northern Ireland yesterday, just to keep up to date?
Yeah, so we started doing this a couple of months ago. If you go on .gov.uk, you can ask for updates on certain things. So you can ask for Brexit updates. We ask for all tax ones. So we sift through the stuff that we're not interested in, but there's always these nuggets every day where it's about VAT or customs duty or specific Brexit related items, and you get a daily email saying this is what's just been announced today. So just make sure you keep on top of it. So that's what I'd recommend you do.
That's brilliant. Thanks for your insights there. I'll give 30 seconds for any final questions from anyone. Okay, fantastic. So thank you all for taking the time to view our webinar today. If you'd like any additional information or would like to provide feedback, please do reach out to me at ryan.harris@noblue.co.uk. This webinar will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel over the next couple of days if you'd like to review some of the slides which were presented today. So as mentioned earlier, this is actually the first of 2 webinars that we are running with BDO. The next webinar should be discussing making tax digital and upcoming changes as a result of the phase 2 requirements. So this webinar will take place on the 19th of November at 2 o'clock, and invitations to register will be sent out to all of you that registered for today's webinar in due course. Thanks again for taking the time today to view today's webinar. A big thank you to Mark and Amit for sharing their insights with us all into these upcoming changes. I look forward to speaking with you all in due course and hope you have a great rest of the afternoon. Please do get in touch if you need any assistance.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.